Well, hello out there in YouTube land. This is Drew Badger, the world's #1 English fluency guide and the co-founder of EnglishAnyone.com. It is a pleasure to be joining you again. Well, the previous video in our advanced listening practice series got over 10,000 views, so here we are with the next in the series. It's really been a lot of fun making these, and the more you share and watch these videos, the faster I will release new episodes. So it's up to you. Anyway, as I always say at the beginning of this series, if you're new to the channel, I highly recommend you go back and watch some of our previous video lessons. Just go on our channel and you can look up any of the previous videos from a while ago that are much slower and that focus on maybe a few specific things like phrasal verbs or maybe a grammar point or something like that. But that will get you used to the sound of my voice so that you can come back and watch this series, which is a lot faster. And then I'll be teaching a couple of things, when we're going over things in the lesson. But most of it, again, is for people that are really learning English in English at a very fast speed so that we can prepare you for conversational English. Anyway, if you're all ready and you're enjoying this lesson set, let's begin. I want to talk about something a little bit different. Well, I always try to come up with something a little bit different, but in this particular lesson, I wanted to talk about how we think. Now, I'm a big fan of psychology and the way we think. A lot of people that are teaching, English or whatever it is they happen to be teaching, they're talking about the very practical how to do things. But without the right mindset or the way of thinking, it's really difficult to achieve success because really that's the foundation of everything, the path that everything else flows from. And if you have a great mindset or you're able to think in a certain way, then all of the other little things that you can do, maybe those will change over time, but the way of thinking is always going to lead you to success. Now, I'm going to talk about something that's a little bit different, as I mentioned just a second ago, actually quite a bit different from what I usually do, even with psychology, but this is a particular sense, I guess what I'd call a sense of success or a sense of making the right choice. Now, this is a really interesting thing, and it's a shorthand, so this is another great phrase here. Shorthand means a way of doing something quickly. It's kind of like a shortcut where you're trying to achieve a particular thing, but maybe you can achieve it in a much faster way. Now, we do this normally when we're thinking and talking in everyday conversations. This is where stereotypes come from, where you make certain assumptions or judgments about people because of how they look or how they dress, that kind of thing. So as a way of thinking, this is just what we do as people because we're not computers. We can't process lots and lots of information, and we have to make choices very quickly and often without all of the information. So we make lots of quick judgments, and the better we get at making these judgments, the better we get at developing a sense of what's correct. Now, if you look at a lot of business people, a lot of, especially like famous business people, they'll be talking about how they had kind of a gut feeling about something. So your gut is your stomach. And you can talk about on a particular day I was going to make a certain decision. I had to make a big decision to choose, between two particular things. And, I had a really good feeling about something. And people talk about the feeling or the sense of something. And that's what I'd like to talk about in this lesson. Now, what's really interesting about having a particular sense of something is it's not something that we could analyze in a scientific way because we can't really measure it. And my sense might be a little bit different from yours. So it's something that we all feel, or at least, I certainly feel it for myself, and I can feel a certain positive feeling, a certain energy almost when I make a decision and I know it was the right one, even before I discover whether it was correct or not. So if I'm, having to make a decision about should I go here, should I go there, I'm kind of making a decision and I'm trying to see how I feel about that before I make a decision. Now, this is an interesting thing connected with this. I remember back in high school, a friend of mine and I were talking about, should we do this or should we do that? And he said, why don't you flip a coin? So to flip a coin just means to take a coin and you throw it up in the air, or to flip it with your thumb. And then when it comes down, you can decide whether heads or tails. So heads is the front or tails is the opposite side of the coin. And you can decide, how whatever it is you're going to do from that. And I said, well, I don't really want to flip a coin and have a coin decide how I feel. But he said the interesting thing about flipping a coin is that you don't let the coin decide. You try to judge your reaction right when it happens. So if you flip the coin and you're excited about the choice that you get, because usually you're a little bit more, at least a little bit more maybe leaning to one side or leaning to the other. So a lot of times we say it's a decision we can't really make or it's difficult to make, but really, we have an opportunity to see how we feel about something right when it happens. So this is an important test, and you can try to develop the feeling for yourself that way. Now, the first thing you should really be doing, there's kind of a two-part process here if you'd like to develop this feeling for yourself, and this is something that's very important to me for making, business decisions or personal decisions. It's not everything about that, but I really can tell, I'd say maybe 9 out of 10 times, I have a really good sense for something and I know it's going to be successful. Maybe occasionally it won't be good, but I've developed a really good sense of making a decision and remembering how I felt at that time, and usually it's a pretty good indicator of whether or not something will be successful. So if I have a good feeling about that, then I know I'm going to be much more excited and confident about that thing. But if I don't have a good feeling about that, maybe it's probably not going to, do me so well. Now, of course, because I have a not so great feeling, maybe that changes the way I behave in that thing, but it's kind of a different, it's almost talking about time traveling and affecting situations in the future, that kind of thing, by how we feel. But anyway, I just wanted to give a kind of two-step process that's something that you can, when you're judging a new thing or you're trying to figure out if it's the right thing for you, like even taking a course or learning English with a particular person or doing anything else. But I wanted to give a very clear and concrete example from my personal life. Now I'm going to talk about, I like to have, something physical here. This is Almond Breeze. Now, this isn't anything I would personally recommend. This isn't a video about recommending almond milk. Well, actually, it is pretty tasty. This happened to be a little bit too sweet for my taste. Too sweet for my taste. You can talk about something being appropriate for you, especially particular food. Like you can say it's a little too salty for my taste, or too sweet for my taste, or too sour for my taste. That's a great native way of expressing that. But anyway, I wanted to talk about these containers. So it doesn't really matter what's in here. I've actually got this filled with water so I can give an example of something. Now, when people are first trying something for the first time, it's a little bit redundant, but anyway, so when you're trying something for the first time, often we get really excited. We want to get into it and try to start doing something, but maybe we're not doing something in the right way. So if you're wanting to develop a sense for something, the first thing you should be doing, at least with a new product or a new kind of thing, you should be trying to do it in the way that it's recommended that you do it. So following the instructions. Now, I know a lot of people, like if you buy a new car, everyone gets that thick instruction booklet, or a new video game or a new computer, something like that. All of these things have really thick instruction booklets, and we look at that thing maybe for 2 seconds and we throw it away, and then we start playing with things. Nobody really looks at that. But this is a really simple example of how we could be, looking at something and trying to use it the right way before we figure out if it's something we like or not. Now, when I get these containers, I actually really dislike these containers because they're really difficult to pour from. So I'm going to take the cap off this, and I'm just going to pour myself a glass of water with this container here. All right, now this is maybe not going to be such an interesting example, but if you've ever tried pouring one of these containers before, and they're pretty ubiquitous. Ubiquitous means they're all over the place. Lots of people use them. It's a pretty common container for things. Now, when I'm pouring this, like, the milk or, whatever, it like blup, 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 and you can feel it. It's not coming out so well, and, it falls in the cup or the glass in this case, and it splatters, and you get, drops of water, things like that all over the place. And the reason that happens is because you're pouring it like this, and the air gets trapped inside here, so nothing is coming back out. Now, what I didn't realize for so many years until actually I saw it on Japanese TV is that you're not supposed to pour it that way. So it's actually not how you're supposed to use this. So again, I wasn't really following the instructions, and to be fair, there aren't really any instructions written on this. There's certainly no picture of how to do it. I've checked. But what I really want to do is turn this around so that the spout is on the top when you pour it. And when you pour it like this, the air is able to flow through the very top of the container. So when I was first judging this, again, we have we got a lot of water in here now. Kind of almond water with stuff floating in it. All right, I'm not going to drink that. I'm going to put that down over here. Hopefully don't kick it over later. But anyway, the point is, when I'm taking something like that, I'm not following the instructions, and right then I'm deciding if I like something or not. So even if I may not be using it correctly, I'm making a very quick judgment because that's just what we do as people. We make judgments about things, and maybe we're right, maybe we're not. But, in this case, what I should have done is, try to figure out at least if I'm using the thing in the right way. Now, pouring it like that, even if I'm pouring it the correct way, so the air goes in through the top and the spout is at the top of the container and not at the bottom when I'm pouring it like that, I still didn't really like the feel of it. So I know, having like a juice container, something like that, isn't really something that's for me. It's just not something I like. So I can make a decision once I'm using it properly, then I can figure out if it's a good thing for me or not. So it takes a little bit more time, but this is what I would recommend for you when you're trying to figure out whether something is a good choice or not. So actually, I'm bringing this up because, when I think about trying a new product, or even when, people are trying to learn English with me. Now, being an English fluency guide, this is quite a bit different from a teacher, and especially how we create lessons with Master English Conversation. So it's a very different way of learning, and many people get into the program, and a lot of people like it, and maybe a few people are saying, like, it didn't work for me. And then I say, oh, did you use the lessons as I recommended? And they're like, I didn't read the instructions. So hey, one of the first things I would recommend doing is first figure out if you're using something the right way, and then you can decide whether or not something is good for you. But as you get better at doing that and actually, trying to test something quickly, you'll develop that sense to see whether or not something is successful. So after a while, you really get a good sense for that. You develop, you can call it a sixth sense or just something like a gut feeling, but it's actually a skill you can develop. And I've seen it developed in my own life as I've gotten better at making decisions, and you get quicker at doing that. Of course, it's not perfect, but you really do make a lot of good decisions that way. If it's something you're interested in doing, you'd like to be able to make quicker decisions, better decisions, and hopefully you do. Anyway, whatever it is you're trying to, first try to figure out if you're using it the right way or not, even though it takes a little bit more time, and then you can decide, how you feel about that thing, if you're making the right choice or not. So the feel of that thing, even pouring it the correct way, it's just not for me. So maybe some things are like that container is better for other people enjoy using that, but it's just not for me. Anyway, that's it for this lesson. If you'd like to learn more about how to learn things differently, if you're prepared for that, and I do recommend you read the instructions first, but click on the link in this video to learn more about Master English Conversation and how we take people using a very different method of learning English by teaching them the regular conversational English, but in easy pieces to get you fluent automatically. Click on the link in this video to learn more about that. And of course, like and share this video. Feel free to subscribe to our channel as well. Lots of things you can do with this video, but the faster it gets to 10,000 views, the faster I'll release the new episode. Have a fantastic day. Be developing that sense, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.